G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. Back to check the traffic lights on Church Street at Glen Innes. And I've been here watching them for 5 minutes. And the good news is they're back to normal. They're actually functioning to the tune of, when I'm pushing the button, there we go. Now let's see if they go back to normal or whether they get stuck on automatic. Now yesterday, what we were looking at was 40 seconds of green, 5 seconds of red, orange and 15 seconds of red. And we have just surpassed the 40 seconds of green, I think. So it's fair and reasonable to conclude that whatever was causing these traffic lights to run on automatic yesterday is no longer in effect today. I think we can conclude that with some degree of certainty. Now there are two possible conclusions here. On the one hand, Adam Marshall and Gladys Berejiklian responded to my frantic, furious YouTube cursing of them, perhaps as a result of somebody ringing up that number and complaining. But I think more possibly a likely scenario is that some bright spark stuck a toothpick into the switch, because apparently if you jam the switch down on these things, that's how to get them to lock on automatic. So, my apologies to the Roads and Maritime Services if that's what was the case. And thank you to my subscriber, I think it might have been Les Bridden, who pointed out that you can jam those switches, and if you jam the switches, then you get automatic lights. To those of you who've been wondering why is there a set of traffic lights when there's no intersection, that there is St Joseph's Convent School, infants and primary. These traffic lights are across the New England Highway, halfway between St Joseph's and the Glen Innes Public School, infants and primary. And the way it came about is a sort of a long story. You see, this used to be a really quiet little back street of Glen Innes. It was called Church Street. There were two schools on it. The school buses used to pick up here on Church Street. First they'd pick up at the primary school, then they'd go up and stop again at the convent. Church Street was not the New England Highway, and the Guida Highway didn't come this far up Ferguson Street either. Instead of the New England Highway being up there in Church Street, the New England Highway came into town along Grey Street, and then about a mile north of town there was two 90-degree bends to align the highway with the highway, so to speak. And all the north-south through traffic used to be funneled straight down through the main shopping centre in the middle of the town. And then on the southern outskirts of town there was another set of 90-degree bends to align the highway with the highway. Meanwhile, Ferguson Street, aka the Guida Highway, used to come into town from the west, and it used to turn 90 degrees south and used to run up along Grey Street, past the House of Follies, past the Post and Telegraph Office, to turn east at the Boer War Memorial, which was one of the first roundabouts in rural New South Wales. However, after the Second World War, there were increasing complaints about the safety hazard of putting through traffic, particularly heavy trucks, up the main street. And there was a continual low-grade level of grumbling about the arrangement. And all of these road safety concerns just sort of carried on until Christmas of 1965, when a car loaded with 5 nuns was headed north to the golf club for a Christmas party, with each nun going along to see the other nuns got none. But anyway, they managed to roll it into the paddock. Crashed and burned and died, all 5 of them. So it was decided to shift the highway out of the main street, thus eliminating the threat of trucks to mothers with prams and babies and small children, and also utterly eliminating the S-bends from the through traffic. Therefore, Grey Street went a bit quiet and Church Street got a bit loud. Loud, 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 and busy. And it got a bit fast too, because they didn't know anything at all about traffic calming back in those days. There was none of these big, broad, wide traffic islands. There used to be across here. It was 3 lanes going north, 3 lanes going south, and a 3-foot wide or 1 metre refuge meridian or median strip running up the middle of the road, about a little bit like that one there. And of course, back before global warming lowered our rainfall, all them little kids walking to school used to churn up the footpath into a mud pie. So the council laid a footpath, and where they lined up for the buses, the little darlings used to tread the ground up into a quagmire too. So each bus used to stop at a pole, and each pole had its own little footpath laid in concrete, put there on the weekends in a series of working bees conducted by the local Lions Club. So, back in 1967, we all used to come filing out of school, and here in front of the principal's house, I think that was the bus for Ilparan. I think, a long time ago. This one here, this was Farrakabad. My father drove this bus. And then, up here, this was Matheson. So, one afternoon, I come out, climbed on the old man's bus, so I would have been sitting around about here, and at that point in time, the kid who sat behind me in Ida Ross's first class, he ran out in that gap between the front of my old man's bus and Goody Goodwin's bus, and as he emerged onto the highway, he got collected by a mini miner. And I can recall seeing one arm sticking up on top of the bonnet with blue smoke coming off the wheels as the driver tried to stop and prop. And that kid lived about 3 days after the air ambulance took him down to Sydney. So that's when they decided to move the bus pickup. And what we have now is the archaeological relics. The footpaths where the buses used to stop. Now they stop behind the 2 schools in a little cul-de-sac where there is no through traffic. Pretty good idea. But it was felt at the time that that wasn't enough. So therefore, the Lions Club stepped in again, and the Lions Club raised the money to install traffic lights across the highway between the public school and the convent, to better ensure the safety of the infants and primary school children of the town. And the town council had to agree to pay for the electricity used to operate the traffic lights, because the Department of Main Roads considered that there was no need for them, because no other towns in rural New South Wales actually had pedestrian lights on their highways. It wasn't until the Department of Main Roads, or DMR, became the Roads and Traffic Authority, RTA, that the state government actually assumed responsibility for paying for the electricity that operates the lights. So there you go, and now you know, and that's the backstory as to why I was quite so irritated yesterday when I thought we'd been stuck with a set of automatic traffic lights. So there you go, and now you know. And if you find the traffic lights down here are stuck for no bloody reason, cycling once a minute, just go and inspect the 3 buttons and pull out the toothpick, and you will have done your civic duty for the day. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.